Sometimes you reach for the moon and you land among the stars. Other times you just fall back down to Earth and realize that you aren't meant for space travel. This is how I felt after presenting my lesson plan on The Girl Who Fell from the Sky by Heidi Duro. While I had good intentions, the lesson plan was a disaster. The intent of the lesson was to have students think critically about the reading they had completed in the novel so far and stir a class discussion as well as group discussions about the text. As an activity to generate discussion amongst the groups and then to be shared and discussed as a whole, I wanted the students to get into pairs and write a newspaper article about an assigned character from the book. At the end of the lesson, we would drop their completed article into a template found on the website readwritethink.org. Sounds good, right? Well, it bombed. There was a lot of confusion on what to write in the article. There was so much focus on trying to figure out what to write in the article that there really wasn't much discussion on the book. Clearly, if my graduate level classmates couldn't figure out what I was asking them to do, then a group of high school students will have no idea what's being asked of them. That was problem number one. Problem number two occurred because there was no discussion in groups, so there really wasn't much to share in the class discussion. The discussion was mostly a review of the characters that were in the novel. In fact, the class discussion was boring and painful. There was no enlightening discussion or thoughtful insight into the text. Again, this is with my classmates, the super students who are always overwilling to share and be involved. Normally, this group can't be quiet and are especially rambunctious when it comes to book discussions because they love discussing literature so much. So if they couldn't engage in the discussion, I highly doubt a group of reluctant teenagers are going to participate at all. The third problem was me. While watching my video, I could see some major flaws in my teaching techniques as well as my lesson. While I am first explaining my lesson for the day to my group of students, I'm standing at the front of the room. I didn't realize until seeing my classmate Diana teach her lesson that there was a much better option. She placed herself over to the side of the class right in the middle. She managed to significantly shorten the distance between her and all of the students. In fact, she made everyone almost equal distance away from her. All of the students could see and hear her. This is something I definitely want to try in future lessons. Also, while students were working on their assignment, I went to the whiteboard to write up some possible discussion questions. My back was to my class for a large chunk of time. While I was writing, I realized this issue and tried to glance around at my students while they were working, but this technique does not work. I couldn't see my students if they had questions, and it also opens the door to quickly lose control of your classroom. I should have had the discussion questions written on the board before the lesson began. In the future, anything that needs to be written will be done before the class begins. Overall, I think the lesson tried to accomplish too many things and didn't really do anything. If I had simplified and done one thing well, I think the lesson would have had more of an impact. If I could go back and do it again, I would scrap the article portion of the lesson and think of another way to have students stir discussion amongst themselves prior to the group discussion. I would also have had a better discussion structure for the group discussion, perhaps something playing off the literature circle in some way. I would have my materials completely ready before the lesson so I wouldn't have my back turned to the class. The list of what I would change could go on forever. But I think my thoughts were good, but I just made a lesson that did not flow together. The independent pieces could not come together to make a whole. I tried to do too much and cover too much. From here, it's all about learning from this disaster of a lesson plan and not repeating the same mistakes.